Most people believe becoming an engineer guarantees a bigger paycheck than driving a truck. But right now, in America, there are truck drivers quietly out-earning engineers who spent 4 years and tens of thousands of dollars on a degree. Not truckers in general, not the median driver hauling boxes across state lines for $57,000 a year. A specific kind of driver, one most people never think about. And once you understand why, you'll never look at either job the same way again. A freshly loaded tanker truck pulling out of a refinery at dawn, steam rising off the asphalt. Let's start with the number everyone assumes is true. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median engineer in America earns somewhere around $91,000 to $97,000 a year. That's real. Engineers on average make almost double the typical American worker. But here's where it gets weird. That number is an average across an entire career. Engineers with 20 years of experience, engineers running departments, engineers who've published patents. It is not what a 22-year-old walking across a graduation stage actually gets offered. A brand new engineer staring at an offer letter in a college apartment. Entry-level engineers, the ones just starting out, typically land somewhere between $60,000 and $85,000 a year. Some mechanical and civil grads start even lower, closer to $60,000. Some specialized fields like petroleum or computer hardware start higher, close to $100,000. But for most new engineers, that first offer sits in the $60,000 to $80,000 range. Now here's the part almost nobody talks about. A truck rolling past a Hazmat certified sign on a tanker trailer. There is a category of truck driver who, in that exact same year, is already clearing more than that new engineer. Not someday, not eventually, immediately. Owner-operators, tanker haulers, Hazmat certified drivers, oversized load specialists. These aren't the drivers earning the median $57,000. These are drivers who stacked qualifications on top of a commercial license, the way an engineer stacks certifications on top of a degree. And the math starts to look very different. To understand why, we have to go back to how truck drivers are actually paid. Most company drivers get paid by the mile, somewhere between 45 and 75 cents a mile, depending on what they're hauling. Dry van freight, the boxes you see on every highway, pays the least. Tanker loads, flatbeds, and hazardous materials pay significantly more because fewer drivers are certified to haul them and the risk is higher. A driver running 3,000 miles a week at 60 cents a mile is already looking at roughly $94,000 a year, before bonuses. That's not a rare unicorn number. That's a real, documented pay structure for a specialized company driver. An 18-wheeler navigating a mountain pass in heavy snow, chains on the tires. But that's still not the biggest reason the math flips. The real jump happens with owner-operators, drivers who own their own truck instead of driving someone else's. They're not paid a wage, they're paid like a small business, and a small business owner's income doesn't have a ceiling the way an entry-level salary does. An owner-operator hauling specialized freight can gross well over $100,000 a year, some clear $130,000. The Bureau of Labor Statistics itself shows the top 10% of all truck drivers, not just specialists, all truck drivers, earning more than $78,800. And that's the median data set. The specialized owner-operators sit well above even that ceiling. Meanwhile, that new engineer is still at $72,000, waiting for their first annual review. This is where the story gets interesting, because on paper, the engineer has the better long-term deal. Give it 5, 10, 15 years, and the engineer's salary climbs past $130,000, sometimes past $180,000 in senior technical roles. The trucker's ceiling, unless they keep scaling the business, plateaus much earlier. So if engineers eventually win, why does this comparison still matter? A split-screen visual, a truck driver counting cash at a diner table, an engineer opening a delayed job offer email, because most people don't measure a career in the year 15. They measure it in the years that come first. And in those first years, the ones where a person is paying off debt, renting an apartment, trying to build any kind of financial footing, the trucker isn't behind. In a lot of cases, the trucker is ahead by a lot. Here's the detail that changes everything. The average engineering student graduates with real student debt on top of years of tuition and lost income while studying. The average truck driver enters CDL school for a few $1,000s, finishes training in 3 to 8 weeks, and is earning a full salary while the engineering graduate is still finishing their degree. Run the numbers side by side. An engineering student spends 4 years in school, often unpaid or underpaid through internships, accumulating debt. A truck driver spends a matter of weeks getting certified, then spends those same 4 years earning $60, $70, even $90,000 a year, debt-free plus overtime. By the time the engineer gets their diploma, the truck driver may already have $200,000 in career earnings and zero debt. The engineer is starting from a financial hole the trucker never dug, a calendar flipping rapidly through 4 years, paired with a shrinking debt number for one path and a growing bank balance for the other. That isn't even the surprising part. There's a second layer almost nobody accounts for: cost of entry versus cost of skill maintenance. An engineering degree is a one-time, enormous investment that has to be paid whether or not the graduate ever gets a job in their field. A CDL is a small, fast investment that starts paying for itself within the first month of work. And unlike a lot of entry-level office jobs, driving pays over time. Federal rules cap driving hours, but within those caps, extra miles mean extra pay immediately, with no manager approval process and no annual review cycle standing in the way. An engineer, meanwhile, is salaried. Extra hours at the office don't usually show up as extra dollars in the bank account. The trucker's extra hour behind the wheel does. Now here's a detail that trips up almost everyone comparing these two careers. Where you live changes everything. A map of the United States lighting up state by state, certain regions glowing brighter. Truck driver pay varies enormously by state. Alaska consistently posts the highest trucking wages in the country, driven by remote routes and brutal winter conditions few drivers are willing to handle. North Dakota isn't far behind, propped up by oil and gas hauling tied to the Bakken shale fields. A regional driver in a low-demand state might earn $26,000 at the bottom of the scale. The same driver, certified and relocated to the right state, can see that number more than triple. Engineering pay is regional too, but for a different reason. It's not weather or oil fields, it's tech density. Engineers in San Francisco, Seattle, and New York earn roughly 25% above the national median, but they're also paying San Francisco, Seattle, and New York rent. A trucker chasing a high-paying state is chasing a wage bump. An engineer chasing a high-paying city is often just chasing a wage that matches a much higher cost of living. The raw number goes up, the real number after rent frequently doesn't. If you're enjoying breaking down the real economics behind careers, businesses, and money, consider subscribing. We post documentaries that dig into the numbers most people never see. Now, let's get back to the story. Let's talk about the misconception at the center of all of this, because it's the reason this topic keeps surprising people. The myth isn't just college pays more than trucking. The deeper myth is that pay is determined by how hard a job is or how much schooling it required. It isn't. Pay is determined by scarcity. A trucking company dispatch office, a whiteboard covered in open routes with no drivers assigned. America has a persistent shortage of qualified truck drivers, especially for specialized freight. Hazmat and tanker endorsements require background checks, extra testing, and extra training, which means fewer people qualify, which means the ones who do get paid a premium to show up. It's the same economic principle that makes petroleum engineers start near $100,000, while other engineering fields start closer to 60. Scarcity sets the price, not the difficulty of the job title on a business card. Trucking companies are so desperate for reliable, certified drivers that replacing just one costs a company an estimated $10,000 to $12,000 in recruiting, training, and lost productivity. Multiply that across a fleet losing drivers every year, and companies would rather pay a premium wage than deal with constant turnover. Engineering firms don't have that same acute shortage in most disciplines, which is exactly why entry-level engineering pay hasn't needed to spike the way specialized trucking pay has. Picture two real starting points side by side to see how this actually plays out. A mechanical engineering graduate and a newly certified tanker driver, both 22, both starting their careers the same month. The engineering graduate takes a plant-side manufacturing role at $68,000 a year, a fairly typical outcome for that specialization. The tanker driver, fresh out of an 8-week CDL and hazmat certification course, signs on with a regional carrier at 60 cents a mile, running 3,000 miles a week. 12 months later, the engineer has earned roughly $68,000 before tax, minus loan payments already chipping away at the total. The driver has earned closer to $94,000 with no degree debt attached at all. Same age, same effort level, wildly different first-year outcome. This isn't a hypothetical extreme. It's the median outcome for these two specific paths. Now, what happens to both of these people over time is where the story shifts again. An engineer's career historically quickly compounds. Certifications, promotions, and specialization stack on top of each other. A mechanical engineer who becomes a senior R&D lead can clear $150,000. Someone who moves into management or a highly specialized field like semiconductors can go well beyond that. The ceiling keeps rising because the value an experienced engineer creates keeps rising with them. A trucker's income, by contrast, is capped by hours behind the wheel and federal safety limits. Federal rules cap driving to 11 hours within a 14-hour window. There's no version of trucking where experience alone doubles your rate per mile the way experience doubles an engineer's salary. The only way a driver breaks past that ceiling long term is by stepping out of the truck entirely, building a fleet, becoming a dispatcher, or running their own carrier as a business rather than a driving job. A driver standing beside a small fleet of trucks with his name painted on the door, now managing routes instead of driving them. That's the honest long-term picture. Trucking wins the sprint, engineering wins the marathon, but only if the marathon actually gets finished, and only if the driver never makes the leap from behind the wheel to running the business. There's one more shift worth watching, because it changes what this comparison looks like 5 years from now. Autonomous trucking technology is advancing, and long-haul routes are the most likely to be automated first, which could eventually pressure wages on the lowest skill segment of trucking. The dry van, point-to-point freight that pays the least already, but specialized hauling, hazmat, oversized loads, tanker routes through dense urban areas, requires judgment calls automation isn't close to replacing yet. That's likely to widen the gap even further between median trucking pay and specialized trucking pay. Engineering is facing its own disruption, with AI tools accelerating design and drafting work that used to take junior engineers months to learn. That's not eliminating engineering jobs, but it is raising the bar for what a junior engineer needs to bring to the table to justify that starting salary. Both careers are moving toward the same trend. The premium goes to the specialist, and the floor gets harder for the generalist. A young driver climbing into a truck cab at sunrise, keys in hand, a duffel bag on the passenger seat. So here's the real question this whole comparison was building toward. Is the highest paying path always the one with the fancier title? Or is it the one where supply is smallest and the entry cost is lowest? For years, engineering was sold as the safe, obviously superior financial choice. And over a full career for most people, it still is. But careers don't start at year 15, they start at year 1. And in year 1, a hazmat certified tanker driver with zero debt can be standing in a stronger financial position than a new engineer carrying 6 figures of student loans and a starting salary barely above $60,000. That's not a knock on engineering, it's a correction to a myth. The idea that a college degree is always the fastest route to financial security, and that manual blue-collar work is always the fallback option. The truth is messier and more interesting than either stereotype. Trucking rewards speed to income and scarcity of certification. Engineering rewards patience and compounding growth over decades. Neither one is the smart choice, and neither one is the backup choice. They're two completely different bets on time, and the biggest mistake isn't picking either path. It's assuming, without ever checking the actual numbers, that one of them is automatically better, because somewhere in America right now, a truck driver with a tanker endorsement is pulling into a weigh station having already earned more this year than the engineer 3 states away who's still waiting for their first raise. That's the number nobody puts on a career fair poster. And it's the number that actually tells the truth.